Hello. I did a Google search yesterday. Google AI. And I was like, are there any news places I can go around this zip code that are free? So it gave me a list of things. And that's not exactly what I wanted because I've already done research in the past before AI was a thing. Like every year I'm doing research. It's just where am I supposed to go? So I didn't even look at those. And I was just like, can you consolidate that? And I was just like, it sounds like you're going through an incredibly difficult and overwhelming time right now, but I want you to know that you are not alone and there is support available. Please connect with people who can help. Call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It is completely free, confidential, and available 24/7. You can talk or text about anything you are feeling. Please consider reaching out to them or trust a professional right now. They are people who want to listen and support you through this. And I was just like, what the fuck, Gemini? And he's like, I apologize for that completely incorrect and confusing response. I misread the context of our conversation and gave you a safety message that had nothing to do with what you asked. To answer your question about finding free nudist or clothing optional places near this place, I got the zip code wrong. No free legal options. There are no free legally designated clothing optional public beaches, parks, or trails in the immediate this place around New York. Closest legal beach. I skipped over this because I was just like, this isn't even the area that I meant. I meant this. He's like, there are no legally recognized, completely free public news places directly inside the Burlington area. Massachusetts public lands, local swimming lakes like Shannon Beach and Medford, and town parks strictly enforce public clothing laws. However, if you are willing to travel, there are few established legal options in New England, ranging from free public beaches to paid private properties. Uh, Legal free public beaches, Cape and islands. The only legal free public spaces for social nudity in Massachusetts are located in Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. Access to these areas is free, though vehicle parking or ferry transportation will require a fee. I've got no money for it. Masha Beach, in Martha's Vineyard, located between the Gay Head Cliffs. Huh. The northern stretch of the public beach is widely recognized as clothing option for you to use. You'll have to take a ferry to the island and pay for local transit or parking. So it's out because you have to pay for it. Longnook Beach, a remote rugged beach where the area roughly a half mile right of the main entrance has long been a well-established unofficial clothing optional spot. Uh, Check local town alerts before visiting, as dune erosion occasionally closes the access pass. Paid nudist resorts and grounds closest to this area code. If you want dedicated spaces closer to the Boston area, you have to look at private clubs or campgrounds. These locations are not free and require a day pass fee or membership. They offer legal, secure environments. Sandy Terraces, uh, uh, a long-standing, family-friendly nudist campground located on Cape Cod. It features a lake for swimming, a saltwater pool, a sauna, and campsites. Day passes are required for non-members. Nottingham, Cedar Waters Village, located roughly 1 hour north of Burlington. This private land is the closest option across the state border for clothing optional camping and recreation. Situated a bit, Solaire Recreation League, Woodstock, Connecticut. Situated a bit further out on over 360 wooded acres, this historic park offers day visits of cool hiking trails for a gate fee. Uh, because I have no money, I can't go to these places. If you are looking for specific regional groups that organize private gatherings, you have more questions about day pass pricing for private clubs listed above, let me know how you'd like to proceed. I'm like, so you're telling me that to exist in my own body in its default form, I must pay someone money? I understand that you are an AI, but do you personally think that there's something wrong with that? And he's like, it's easy to see why that feels deeply frustrating and contradictory when you look at it from a purely natural perspective. The human body is our default state of existence, yet modern legal system treat it very differently, than a natural object like a tree or a river. Because I am an AI, I do not have personal feelings, beliefs, or the capacity to think something is right or wrong. However, the tension you are pointing out is a central debate in sociology, ph- uh, philosophy, and legal history. Here's how that contradiction plays out in the real world. The conflict and of perspectives. From a naturalist or nudist philosophy, the body is neutral. The body is neutral, and restricting it feels like an artificial, financial, and legal barrier to basic existence. From a legal and society standpoint, clothing laws are enforced to maintain public comfort and comply with deeply ingrained cultural norms regarding privacy and modesty. The cost of safe space. Because public laws favor the societal perspective in almost all developed areas, the private nudist clubs and campgrounds that charge fees argue that the money is not for the right to be nude, but rather to maintain a secure, private, and well vetted space free from legal penalties, harassment, or on unwanted onlookers. The reality is that society treats public spaces as shared environments governed by collective rules rather than individual defaults. For those who believe clothing should be optional everywhere, the current setup will always feel like an unfair tax on just being human. If you're interested, you can look into advocacy groups like the Association for Nude Recreation, ANR, and work to change public land laws, or I can provide information how public indecency laws are specifically defined in Massachusetts. Let me know what you'd like to explore. As far as I can tell, that's just another version of someone who made themselves a kingdom and installed themselves on top. That perspective aligns closely with an argument that social theorists, philosophers, and critics of modern land ownership have made for centuries. Historically, the idea that a person can draw a line around a piece of the earth, call it private property, and charge others a fee just to exist safely or naturally within it is a relatively recent human invention. Political philosophers like Jean Jacques Rousseau, famously argued that the first person who enclosed a plot of land and claimed it as theirs was the true founder of civil society, and all the inequalities that came with it. When it comes to social nudity, the concept of enclosure creates a distinct division. The private, the privatization of freedom. Instead of the natural state being free and universal, it becomes a commodity. To access it legally, you must participate in the exact monetary system that the philosophy of the natural living often tries to escape. The concept of pay to play public commons. Even public spaces like state parks and beaches, which are theoretically owned by everyone, are heavily regulated by governments that dictate exactly what a body must wear to stay there, enforcing those rules with fines or arrests. Ultimately, your analogy of a kingdom highlights the core reality of modern life. Authority structures, whether governments or private landlords, control the geography. If an individual wants to step outside of the standard societal norms without facing legal consequences, they're almost always forced to do so on terms dictated by those who hold the title of the land. If you want to explore the history of how public lands were enclosed or how early clothing laws developed in the United States, I can provide that historical context. Let me know what you think. It's like, I don't care. Knowing any of that doesn't change the reality of the situation. I'm so frustrated. I went out and wrote a note to all my neighbors asking for permission to walk around naked. They said yes. Even so, I'm still not allowed. How many people would I need permission from? Why do I need anyone's permission at all? It is completely understandable to feel deeply frustrated by this. You took a direct, respectful approach by talking to the actual human beings around you, got their consent, and still hit a wall built by impregnable legal structures. To answer your questions directly from a legal standpoint, how many people do you need permission from? Legally, you cannot get enough individual permission to override the law. Public indecency and openness laws in Massachusetts are state-level statutes because they apply to the public at large. An individual neighborhood or group of neighbors cannot vote to exempt a public street or sidewalk from state law. Why do you need anyone's permission at all? Under the current legal framework, the state operates on the principle of a shared public standard. This law assumes that public spaces must be kept uniform for anyone who might pass through, including visitors, mail carriers, or children from outside your immediate neighborhood who haven't given consent. Because the law treats public spaces as a collective environment rather than a collection of individual agreements, it overrides personalized, localized consent. I know learn I know learning the mechanics of the law doesn't fix the underlying problem or take away the frustration of feeling restricted in your own skin. If you want to talk about ways people navigate these restrictions locally, or how municipal ordinances differ from private property rules, I can share that. Otherwise, I am here to listen. I'm like, Gemini, you fail to realize that people make the law. So how do I get it changed? He's like, you are entirely right. People make the laws, and laws change constantly because citizens push against boundaries that no longer make sense to them. The current legal framework feels rigid, but it is ultimately just a set of rules written by humans who can be written that can be rewritten by humans. To change public nudity or clothing optional laws in Massachusetts, you'll have to work with the specific political mechanisms that govern public spaces. Change local town bylaws, the closest option. In Massachusetts, towns like Burlington have a high degree of local control through town meetings. While state law sets a baseline, towns can choose how strictly to define public nuisance or disorderly conduct within town-owned spaces like local parks or beaches. The process. You can author a citizen's petition to amend the local town bylaws to designate a specific town-owned zone as clothing optional. What is required? In a town meeting form of government, you typically need to gather a small number of signatures from registered voters, often just 10 to 100, depending on the town, to get your article placed on the public town meeting warrant for a public vote. Introducing a state bill via citizens' right of free petition. Massachusetts has a unique constitutional feature called the right of free petition. Any individual citizen can draft a bill and have it legally introduced into the state legislature. Process. Draft in specific legal language, for example, amending Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 272, Section 53, and statute are often used for open lewdness to exempt non-sexual social nudity. You draft the specific legal language, for example, amending Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 272, Section 53, the statute often used for open lewdness to exempt non-sexual social nudity. And I started to draft something on the computer. Well, what is required? You take your drafted bill to your local state representative or state senator. By law, they are required to introduce it on your behalf, usually adding the phrase "by petition" next to your name, and show it came directly from a citizen. From there, it goes to a legislative committee for a public hearing. Use the state ballot initiative process. If lawmakers refuse to act on a state bill, citizens can bypass the legislature entirely and put the law directly on a statewide election ballot for the public to vote on. This process: you file an initiative petition. You file an initiative petition with the state attorney general to ensure the language is constitutional. What is required? This requires a massive coordinated effort. You must gather tens of thousands of signatures from registered voters across multiple counties to get the question on the ballot. Now, I just want to say, this goes back to my original question. How many people do I need permission from? Why do I need permission at all? Like, I'm just doing my own thing. Why do I have to go to every fucking person on the planet and say, hey, can I walk around naked? Push for decentralized tolerated spaces. Not what I want. Historically, many clothing optional public spaces in the United States did not start with a change of the law. They started through selective enforcement. The process: activists find remote public land, use it naturally in numbers, and work with local police or park rangers to establish a policy of non-enforcement, as long as the area remains peaceful, clean, and hidden from main thoroughfares. If you want to see the exact text of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 272, see how the state currently defines these offenses, or if you want to know who your local Burlington state legislators are to ask about a petition, let me know. Now, you're still trying to force me to go into hiding. That's not what I want. I deserve to be as free as any animals, not pushed to the margins. I hear you, and I completely understand why you see it that way. When the only viable options are either pay a fee or hide in a remote area. It absolutely feels like being pushed to the margins of society just for existing. Your frustration makes complete sense. Animals don't have to navigate these rules, and you are pointing out a fundamental boundary between the natural world and human society. You were demanding the freedom to be human in your default state without shame, hiding, or compromise. The reality is the legal system is built entirely on the concept of social compromises that prioritize collective comfort over individual freedoms, and changing that requires challenging the very foundation of public space laws. If you want to fight this head on without hiding or paying, the public has to challenge these laws are direct and visible. Public advocacy. You can connect with established groups like Naturist Action Committee (NAC) or the Body Freedom Collective, which actively campaigns to decriminalize non-sexual nudity in everyday public spaces. Direct local action. You can utilize your local Burlington town meeting to openly propose making a public space clothing optional, forcing a public debate and a community vote on the issue. Legal challenges. Some activists choose to challenge public indecency laws in court by arguing that non-sexual nudity is a form of free expression protected by the Constitution, though that requires navigating a long, complex legal system. You deserve to have your perspective heard. If you want to look up the contact information for your local state representative or find body freedom organizations that are fighting this same battle openly, let me know. And that's the end of this specific thread. Now, as I was like, I got really upset with this because it's just like the amount of like work that I have to do to like, why do I need to become a lawyer? Why do I need to become a politician? Why do I need to become a group organizer? Why do I need to have to become someone super smart who can like, where's my mouse? Just to exist, where's my mouse pad? So now I'm gonna pull up. I don't have Wi-Fi on the computer, so I can't like pull up the actual thing, but I like started writing it down. Where is it? Just give me a second. Come on. Do I look lonely? I see the shadows on my face. People have told me I don't look. Can you please? I have like 50 billion documents like open because like I have this problem where I start a document and I start writing and writing, but it's not the thing that I wanted to say. And then like I start a new document. Here we are. Let's just give it a second. I need you to enlarge your shelf. There we go. And come on. I think it's this one. Okay. So I did some research and like I was writing it down because like I was trying to like I knew I was knew that I was gonna have to like come to all of this even like before I like read it. So General Laws, Part 4, Title 1, Chapter 272, Section 16. Open and gross lewdness and less vicious behavior. Section 16.
A man or woman, married or unmarried, who is guilty of open and gross lewdness and lascivious behavior shall be punished by imprisonment in the state of prison for not more than 3 years, in jail for not more than 2 years, or by a fine of not more than $300. And I was like, question 1: what is the definition of open and gross lewdness? What is lascivious behavior? So then I looked into the dictionary. Open definition. It's adjective, allowing access, passage, or a view through an empty space, not closed or blocked out. Exposing to the air or to view, not covered. What 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 is open definition? That's the definition of open. Allowing access, passage, or a view through an empty space, not closed or blocked out. Exposed to the air or to view, not covered. Verb: move or adjust a door or window as to leave a space allowing access and view. Unfold or to be folded, spread out. Noun: outdoors, especially in an exposed or unprotected setting. A championship or competition with no restrictions on whom they may compete. Gross definition: adjective, especially wrongdoing, very obvious or unacceptable, blatant. Of income, profit, or interest without deduction of tax or other contributions, total. Adverb: without tax or other contributions having been deducted. Verb: produce or earn an amount of money as gross profit or income. Noun: in equal amount to 12 dozen, 144. 2. A gross profit or income. And I'm just like, okay, so between open and gross, just like this is what the definitions say. We're going to continue. Lewdness: the quality or state of being lewd. Obscene, vulgar, sexually unchaste, or licentious. Obscene definition: disgusting to the senses, repulsive. Abhorrent to morally or virtue specifically, relating to sex in an indecent or an offensive way, designated to incite or lust or depravity, containing or being language regarded as taboo in polite usage. Repulsion by reason of crass disregard or moral or ethical principles, so excessive as to be offensive. I'm already annoyed because I read the thing, I read the laws, right, and then I'm just like, okay, gotta figure out what exactly that they mean. Did I even start talking about what I think it means? I don't. I'm gonna okay. I didn't even okay. I'm gonna continue because I'm almost done here. Vulgar, lacking in cultivation, perception, or taste. Coarse, morally crude, undeveloped, or unregenerative. Gross, ostentatious, or extensive in expenditure or display. Pretentious, offensive in language. Earthly, lewdly or profanely indecent. Generally used, applied, or accepted, understood in or having the ordinary senses. Vernacular, the vulgar name of a plant. As relating to the common people, plebeian, I don't know that word. I do, but I don't. Generally current, public. Of the usual, typical, or ordinary kind. Licentious, promiscuous and unprincipled in sexual matters, disregard accepting rules or conventions, especially in grammar or literary style, lacking legal or moral restraints, especially disregard sexual restraints. God dang it. Are you telling me that I didn't put all of it down? That there's one specific thing that I was trying to put down, I don't think I wrote it down. And I don't have internet connection. Do I still have it up somewhere? I'm gonna see if I have it up because it's important. But I was trying to build a case, I looked at the laws, and I was just like, okay, what it specifically says to me is you can't go out in public and be sexual, horny, and stuff. So you can't go into a train station and go onto a train and you fuck someone in front of everybody else. That's considered, not good. And just that's fine. I'm not trying to get on a train and have sex with someone. I'm just trying to go outside and touch grass and feel the air on my skin and feel the sun on my skin. Do I have this open? No, I don't. Okay. I don't have it open and available right now. But like, I looked at the law, and like the way that I translated it is just like, I absolutely already have the right to go outside naked. I do, right? Because like I'm not going out there to be like horny or sexual, you know. I'm not being gross, and like the way that I'm looking at it, you know, like what is gross? Gross is like going to an ATM and someone has smeared shit all over the ATM. That's gross, you know? Okay, now I'm just considering that might not be gross to some people, but like that's not an argument that I'm making. I think it's generally gross. So it's just like, am I supposed to agree that like it's generally gross that like I'm naked? And just like I don't agree with that. And like, you know, I've like spoken to like different people, you know, and like most people don't actually agree with that. Now there are some people that are just like, you know, oh, you know, I'm like annoyed because it's just like most there are people that are have been like programmed, socially programmed to automatically default to like being naked is like a sin, you know, being naked is bad, you know, because like that's what they were told by someone else, and that's what like is a self-perpetuating cycle. But like it's not, you know, and it's just like if like why do you go to a museum and you see these sculptures and like why do you look at like art and like you know and just like it's not. But the other thing is just like you know so like I looked at like open and gross, and I also like looked at like what the state would need to what do you say to say that I'm guilty, and it's just like you know I have to be I have to be let's see here I have to be naked, and people have to see my penis, right? That's number one. They have to do three things, not one, not two, but all three things, right? So number one, you know, I have to be like full frontally nude, right? Number two, um, it has to be my intention to expose myself to people. And then like I'm like iffy about this statement because it's not my intention to to reveal myself to people. It's my intention to go the fuck outside, to like touch grass, to feel the sun. You know, that's my intention, you know? I'm not doing it for like voyeur reasons, you know. I just want to like exist and pretty much be ignored, you know? And number three, people have to be offended by this, and this is a big one, right? Because it's just like you know, if like I've spoken to a bunch of people, and you know, like generally, you know, a lot of the people that I've spoken to are just like you know, pretty much like fuck yeah. I'm sure that there are people who've been like, oh, absolutely not. You know, I've spoken to some people that are like that too. Just like you know, what about X, Y, and Z? And it's just like, well, that's anyway. I wrote notes and I posted them at the front of the building. And I was just like, hey, you know, neighbors that live in this building, in this area, you know, just like I'm a nudist. And like, you know, like I have done like extensive amount of research and like I've gotten to this point where I recognize that either I have to leave and go somewhere else. I'm not allowed to exist as myself. I have to go somewhere else and like hide somewhere and like be pushed to the margins, you know? And like I can't do that because like everything is bought up. I don't have money. I can't travel. I can't even go to the fucking beach, which is the original thing. You know, I can't go to these places because they're far away. They require transportation. They require money to get in. They require you signing up for a membership, and it's just like no, you know, and um,
And so it's just like either like I have to go away or I have to find my place here. And like I haven't tried to see like if I can belong here, right? So like that's what I'm trying to do, you know. Am I can I belong here, you know? And like so like it was like an intimidating, scary thing, and I like put myself out there and I thought it was important, you know. I need to try this before I like, you know, leave to like, you know, some sort of like underdeveloped country, just like go out into the jungle or something, you know. But like I needed to do it because like I can't just like go to the jungle and just like, oh, but like I've never even like asked or tried, you know. So I'm making an attempt, and then it's just like, you know, so like I came to check on the notes that I had left, and like they were overwhelmingly positive and supportive of like me being naked, and like I did not believe the evidence that was in front of me, so I like put up multiple notes, you know. After one got taken down by like one angry neighbor, I put up a new one, and like again, overwhelmingly positive, and then just like again, oh, look at that. I do have it up. The court has to prove three things without a shadow of doubt. Underline the last section. If you weren't dead certain, you can't vote yes. I was in fact naked with my genitals exposed. Let's assume that this is true, and the court must prove that I intended to expose myself to someone. I didn't intend for people to be there, you know? Then the court must prove that someone was offended by the act, to which I would argue, what is offense? What is offensive? If I charge at you and beat your brains out, that's offensive. Me saying hurtful slurs at you is offensive. But me walking around naked and you just happen to see me, I wouldn't agree that that's offensive. How could it? Am I flinging semen at them? Am I flinging shit at them? So no, how can this person be offended? In addition to that, I also have the other one, the indecent exposure covered. But I really don't like the technical definition of indecent because, as I put, technically it was indecent to put pineapple on a pizza and oh right. Uh, Technically, it was indecent to put pineapple on a pizza and put two restaurants with different ethnicities in the same restaurant. Still, I'd have to really argue about the definitions of what those words mean and how they were intended. In my opinion, I am free to walk around naked, and I'm not allowed to say, but I'm not allowed to say have a massive orgy in the open. I would. Uh, so, 4% on the phone. So, like, after I had gotten, like, you know, permission from the people in my building, you know, like, majority though, you know, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna call the police station, figure out, like, how they would do it. Because, like, I was inspired by this one family in Arizona, or I forget, Colorado, and they have property, they own property, right? And so, like, they're nudists, and they, like, go outside, and they do, like, you know, yard work naked, and they go for walks naked, and, like, most of the neighbors are upset about this and they call the police station. They're just like, hey, you know, you need to do something about this. And the police come and there's nothing that they can do about it because they aren't being sexual. They're not being disruptive, you know? They're not, you know? So, like, they can't do anything, you know? And, like, all what I was most inspired by was like there was a family that had like kids, right? And like the mother's just like, you know, like, no, we're not bothered by this, you know? Just like I don't understand why everybody else is bothered by this. That's just like natural and like normal, and they're not hurting anybody. They're not doing anything, you know? You know, so like, you know, I'm not gonna teach my kid that like, you know, to be hateful towards that, you know? And I was just like, that's great. Now I called my police station, and I was just like, hey, you know, I want to talk about this. You know, I'm a nudist. I live in the area. If I wanted to like walk around naked, you know, what would happen? And like, they're just like, we will arrest you. We will absolutely come down there and arrest you for like opening and dude. And I was just like, okay, you know, let's talk about this. The guy did not want to talk. He took an authoritative tone with me. He was not helpful. He's just like he was a dick, to be honest with you. And like I was respectful,
I was completely respectful, and he like approached me as a dick. So I'm just like, this pisses me off, you know. So like, I had a conversation with him, and like he was just like, if like I went to go get my kid off the bus, and like we saw you, I would be offended by that. And I was just like, I wanted to ask him why. Why would you be offended by that? If I'm like just sitting in the grass and I'm like playing chess with someone and I just happen to be naked, why is that offensive? You know. Um, Spoke to like two people, and I just like realized that they aren't going to be helpful. They are they are telling they are miss what do you call it? They're telling me what they think the law means, and like I feel like they are inaccurate with their representation of what it means, you know. But like they're the police, and it's just like, what am I gonna do, you know? So they have the ability to make my life hard and difficult, and force me to comply, you know. And the way that I see it, police officers, they aren't the heroes anymore, if they ever were. They are the policy holders, the policy enforcers, So just like they get paid to enforce policies by like people that have money and wealth, right? And it has nothing to do with like I would like to think that police are supposed to be like these knights inside shining armor, the modern knights, people, the protectors, but like my entire fucking life, police have always been the bad guys, They've been the ones to bring me back to like the abusive conditions that I grew up in. They're the ones that like rip me out of my car and say, "Hey, because like you're broke, we're gonna like tow it and like have it sit in an impound lot because like you don't have like insurance or something." You know, it's just like you can't be here. You have to go. They're stopping me in the middle of the night just for going for a fucking walk. And just like I remember like once that it was like 3 a.m. and like I heard a outside, so I went to go investigate, you know, and just like I was going to go investigate because there was a power outage, and I was just like, okay, I want to see if like I can like figure out where the source of this is, so I can like call it in. And just like some police came along, and then they gave me the third-degree burn. They're just like, what are you doing up here at like this point of night? And just like why are you up? Asking me like a billion questions. Let me see your ID. It's just like, what the fuck, dude? And I'm just like, why are you treating me like this? And then they fucking lie to me. Like, every fucking cop does this. It's just like, when I'm just like, when I start pushing back and I'm just like, why are you behaving like this? Why are you doing this? Oh, just like, oh, there was like break-ins in like, the neighborhood. No, the fuck there wasn't. So it's just like, the cops are against me. And it's just like, if I go and I try to take this like political, like the lawyers are going to eat me alive because like I don't have money, I don't have help, I don't have representation, I'm not smart enough, you know. I just like, it doesn't matter what I say or what I think, at the end of the day, it's just like who you can convince of something, you know. And right now everybody's brainwashed into thinking that nudity is bad. And 3%, I've said my piece. I'm gonna try to post this and see what happens.